just how to run a business. Where has this been? Why was this not taught in school? There's some genius in the work that Gino did in making this that forces even our clients as we're bringing them through EOS to become more abundance minded. We were meetings for meetings for meetings. Two things were happening. Nothing was getting done because we were just in meetings. And when we got rid of that and forced everybody to flush those issues into the L10, it made them be more healthy to bring the stuff up and to address each other more one-on-one.
Welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. I am your host, Debra Chantry-Taylor, and I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs live their ideal life through creating a better business. I started this podcast to be able to share with you the highs and lows of being an entrepreneur through some of the things that I've been through, but also through my guests. Today's guest is very interesting. He is a father of 9-year-old triplets, a business owner, self-confessed visionary, and also now an EOS implementer. On the surface, he was running a really successful business, and everybody from the outside in thought, wow, this is amazing. But in reality, he was paddling very fast under the water, and it only really hit him when he broke down. A cherry farmer gave him a traction book, and that traction book changed his life. He listened to it on Audible on the way home from this meeting, and that was the beginning of a change in his life. Today, he's going to share with you how to roll out traction for your team, not to your team. One of the biggest mistakes visionaries often make is rolling traction out to the team, not for them. So I'm really pleased to welcome Ian Murray, who is an EOS implementer and also the visionary of Murray Insurance. Welcome to the show, Ian. Hey, welcome to the show, Ian. It's great to have you on board. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm fantastic. How about you?
Yeah, no, really good. Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to the weekend, but had a great week as well. We are both EOS implementers, and you've been an EOS implementer now for, I think, sort of around about 18 months, but you have been an EOS fan for much longer. I wonder if you could give us a little bit of your history. How did you get to, come across EOS and become an EOS implementer?
Yeah, it's a good question. Long journey. So I also own an insurance agency. So around the age of 23, I actually opened up an insurance agency. We were living in this town, London, Ontario, and this opportunity came up in Kingsville, Ontario, and we opened up an insurance agency there. Didn't know anybody. Had never been to Kingsville really before in my life. Maybe I played hockey there once as a kid. But so we just went on a whim and decided to move, and we started building this insurance agency, and we're doing really well. Things were growing, but I was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I remember at one point in time, it was like a Sunday night. We used to have a boat, and we just got in from the boat, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, and people are texting me. He's like, hey, I need a quote on I pull my laptop up and I'm doing the quote. And this went on for a long time. And ultimately, I just for some reason couldn't get everyone in my office to kind of follow along with how I would deal with a client. I just was always frustrated. I was probably always angry is what I was. But I don't know, I would joke with my wife and just like, I don't know why I'm a business owner. Like, it would be easier if I was just a salesperson, because, the amount of time and emotional energy I'm pouring into this agency, the juice just wasn't really worth the squeeze. It wasn't worth the investment that I was putting in. And I always loved, I'm big on energy, and I always loved going to like a conference, or I'd love going to and listen to like a podcast or read a book and come into my team and be like, hey guy, I got this new idea. We're going to do this. The one day my one team member said to me, after I literally had laid out this entire new plan that we were going to go down, she laughs and she says to the two other people that are in the agency, if we just stay quiet long enough, Ian's going to forget about this and he's going to move on to something else. And I was like, wow. So long story short was I ended up just so stressed out with trying to run that business that I ended up with gastritis. And then right after I got rid of the gastritis, I found out we were having triplets. So I was able to take a little bit of time off with the kids, because obviously, feeding 24 hours a day, three on, three off. It was, I got back into business, and I think the kids were around 2 around this time. And again, I'm just stressed the nines again. And I'm in my kitchen, and my 3 kids are around me, and they're, doing their 2-year-old things, and I'm yelling at them. And they all go running, and I end up sitting in my kitchen. I just cried. I said, man, something's got to change. So I knew that I didn't know how or what was needed to change. I knew I needed to get less stress in my life. So I went to Strategic Coach, and I was trying to go through all their material, and I was griping and moaning about all my issues in the business. And this cherry farmer from Northern Michigan hands me the book Traction. And I'm just a big believer in like stuff get brought to you at the right time. Like when you're ready to listen, and when you're, maybe fed up enough that you're actually going to do something. It showed up my plate, and I got a 4-hour drive home from Toronto, and I decided to download an Audible and listen to it all the way home. And I was like, this is how to run a business. Where has this been? Why was this not taught in school? I was just obsessed. And I think I must have reread that thing 3 or 4, 5 times. And then, of course, like a typical visionary, I immediately was like, we're going to implement this. So, I'm starting my L10 meeting. I don't even have a VTO created. I have L10 meeting. Let's go. I don't even have a scorecard. We're building a scorecard in like the L10 meeting. My team's like, what are we doing? Everyone, give me a piece of good news. Go.
I'm laughing because I'm sure there's a whole bunch of visionaries that were listening into this who've probably done exactly the same thing. And they haven't even considered, the most important tool is probably the accountability chart. And that's way off they haven't even considered that.
I hadn't even cracked the accountability chart.
Yeah.
I probably started jotting some things down into like the VTO at that point in time. I went to it. We were 3 weeks in. I gave up because, that it's just too much accountability on my to try to do it. No one has implemented EOS worse than I have. It's not plausible. So,
and how are the team feeling? Because the team, they probably were going, oh, here we go again, another one of Ian's ideas.
It's whiplash. And then every time I'm redoing it, I'm like, guys, this time's different. It's going to stick. The only thing that was beneficial was it was the same thing that I was trying to make stick. And then I had convinced my wife, because, when we were raising triplets together, everything worked so well between us. And I was like, this is unbelievable. Like we're working as a team, and everything's smooth, and you're kind of organizing me, and I'm getting this stuff done. And I was like, hey, do you want to come in and be the integrator at the company? And she had this really great pharmaceutical career. But apparently I'm a pretty good salesperson. So
typical visionaries can sell ice to Eskimos, can't they?
My wife has often said, you just get so passionate about it. I just kind of get swept up in it. But I had said to her, hey, let's, come on board. Let's do this. So she came on board, and I did the most unfair thing in the entire world. I handed her the book Traction, and I was like, implement this. So again, we probably had a few other false starts just from that. Even we did like an EOS rollout. I don't think any of our tools were really even completed. We're just telling people what their jobs are. Like we had that accountability chart, like, you're doing this now. And the person like, I'm not really the guy good at that. And I really, that role should be over. And we're like, it's just the way. So again, a few more false starts, broke my nose a few more times. And then we finally said, okay, let's hire an EOS implementer. So we hired John Weenie, and our lives changed. The business took off like a bottle rocket. Things started to smooth out. The team really understood that they had a voice. They were, so much more involved, from bringing the issues up that are at the front line, making sure that it got up to us, and just so much more buy-in, and a lot of that, just such great direction from John, and just us using the tools correctly as well.
And I think this is, again, one of the things I see a lot with self-implementers is the visionary reads the book and they go, hey, I can do this. And then they do everything themselves. As you said, they just tell people this is what it's going to be. And the team's just sitting there kind of going, if you give anybody anything without any context or any contribution, there's no ownership, there's no accountability, there's no engagement.
Yeah. And I say this a lot of times with my EOS teams now is, when you're rolling this out, you're rolling it out for them, not to them. That at the end of the day, there are issues that are in the business that they're feeling the effects from, whether it's the whiplash from the visionary or not understanding the strategic direction of the company. And this is really for them. And so they can live a better life inside of the business. But oftentimes, we as visionaries, and specifically probably when we're self-implementing, we're doing it to them. This is your new role. This is the seat you're sitting in.
I have to share. I had a potential client who actually rang me one time. They said, "Look, we want to work with an implementer. We've been self-implementing. We thought we were self-implementing for some time. We've actually realized we're self-inflicting." And I thought that was just such a perfect sort of phrase. Self-inflicting. Yeah.
I was self-inflicting. That's right. That's exactly what I was doing. So, and like I said, it really took off. I kind of worked myself out of a conventional job inside of the agency by that point in time. And there were so many things. I don't know how deep we want to get, but in working with John, really trying to figure out, our 10-year target and really trying to figure out what our core focus was. And I remember our core focus at one point in time, the why we exist, right? It was to be the biggest insurance agency in Canada. And I remember, so we had done this with him, and it was kind of our second time around, or I don't know, maybe it was at a quarterly, but as you're reviewing the BTO, and he goes, "Is that really what you want?" Because he goes, "I never really hear you talking about it." And both my wife and I looked at each other and we were like, "No, we actually don't care about being the biggest insurance agency in Canada. That doesn't get me out of bed at all." And he really pressed us on that. And where we ended up with the agency was to build health, wealth, time, and purpose for our team members. That was our why. And man, that changed everything, because then that made us start thinking about, okay, let's bring in a profitability bonus and really start getting profits back to the team and really setting a 10-year target for where we want that profitability bonus to be. So everything really got built around the team, because that was the most important part. And it was the thing that got us out of bed in the morning. But without his help and without pushing us, we wouldn't have got there.
And it is so important. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. So as it worked our way again on that core focus, was at one point in time, I because a typical visionary, things had gone so well with the insurance agency, I decided to put a financial planning company inside the insurance agency.
Of course.
Yes, because it all just meshes so well. But and as we're doing this up, and I finally realized I'm good at financial planning, because I ended up having my CFP, my CLU, and all these letters behind my name. And we just didn't have the availability to really bring in more people for that. That's not where our bread and butter was. If I probably ran my backwards numbers, I was probably earning like $1 an hour on financial planning practice. So we cut that out. But what I loved about financial planning, I loved that helping somebody, like really getting clear over their goals. So in financial planning, the big thing I would talk about is, what is it that you actually want? So you'd say, like, what are the three things? And everyone goes, well, family's the most important thing to me, and time with my kids and time with my spouse. And I'd say, okay, well, let's get your budget up, and let's take a look. Where are you spending your money? Let's highlight those areas where the top three things are being spent. And that would blow their head off. You're right. So I always had this idea in financial planning of let's get you a plan for retirement. But at the end of the day, take the rest of that money, spend it where it makes you happy, because you're saying that your family is your number one priority and makes you happy. So let's start spending money on that. So I love that advising and just getting them clear. And as I was talking to John, as we're graduating, I said, how do I do what you do? Because that's what you've done for us. And that's what I miss from financial planning, which we from the company. And he goes, yeah, I'll set you up with a contact. And that's how I ended up here today. I really missed that really making a difference in people's lives. And I love entrepreneurs. They just, I love the way they think. I love the way they speak. I'm an entrepreneur as well. And everything just connects so much better. There's a long-winded story.
No, that's absolutely fabulous. And it's one of the things that I love too, is when I I say I came across EOS because they launched into New Zealand using my event space, and they left me a couple of books, and I tried to read Traction, found it boring as batshit, read the Get a Grip, got completely hooked on it. And then when I decided to sort of sign up to do it, the thing I loved about EOS is that EOS implementers come from an entrepreneurial background. They're not theoretical. They're not just a coach that's got some certification that says I can put together a plan for you. You know, we've been there, we've done that. Some of us are still doing it. We're walking in the shoes. We've had the highs, we've had the lows, and that brings a certain empathy, a certain understanding. But it also means we can ask the right questions as well, because you know we're not consultants in terms of giving the answers, but we know the questions to ask based on the experiences that we've had. I think
this community is incredible. I mean, from the world that I come from with insurance, and I think it has to do a little bit with just the business side. I mean, there's our core values with EOS, which people live and breathe. But there's also this beautiful thing that, you only have 15 to 25 clients, right? And your plate's full. You just really you don't have any more time. EOS implementers are still abundance mindseted. Whereas, I come from an insurance world where in theory, you can take on as much business as you want. People can get a bit territorial and kind of creating those same strategic relationships in the insurance world isn't as common. This world is just beautiful. And honestly, it's funny. There's some genius that in the work that Gino did in making this, that forces even our clients as we're bringing them through EOS to become more abundance minded. Yeah, I've had a couple clients come to me and say, this has changed the way I even operate at home. I'm trying to look at things through like more an empathetic lens and put more heart into it. It's just incredible. And then of course, Gino going off and doing the inner work now. I guess there's a good reason why he did that.
I'm going to dive deeper into the EOS stuff that you're doing. So you're working with clients now, but you're still running the agency as well. In terms of, in your own business, but also with the clients that you work with, is there a favorite tool, a tool that you kind of think that it really gives you that light bulb moment where something kind of clicks and you go, this is it?
I love the VTO. And maybe it's because I'm a visionary, but I really, really do love the VTO. And I think, we talked a little bit earlier, with John walking us through and really clarifying our vision inside of our insurance agency. And that changed everything for us. It changed our entire trajectory of where our organization went and got so much more buy-in from the organization. And also we just brought on a brand new operations manager, and I was the last interview. So everyone on the leadership team did the interviews. I was the last interview. I did the core value speech, and then I also just did the VTO walkthrough. So I just walked through it, and she bought into it. And honestly, the company she was in before, it had more probably long-term opportunities for her in terms of stepping stones, because it was such an enormous organization. But when someone can see where you're going, and when they can see, yes, I can be part of this 10 years down the road, and I can even do, not just a different title, but I can do inner work inside of this organization and become better at just as myself. I don't know. I think that's just such an underrated tool. And I've said this to small business owners, people who maybe only have 4 or 5 employees. Do the VTO, because they're always saying, well, I'm just a stepping stone company. You don't have to be a stepping stone company. Like, if you build a compelling vision for where you're going, you don't have to lose people because they want to help you get there too.
Which is why I think the 3-year picture specifically is one of my favorite tools. Because I think that, yes, of course, you've got to know where you're going in terms of long term, but the 3-year picture, I always, whenever I have them, launch the VTO to the organization, I get them to actually ask all of their team to close their eyes as they go through it. And I will normally, if I'm privileged to be there while they're doing it, I actually watch the people in the room. And I say to the senior leader, watch the people in the room, because when they close their eyes and you start describing that 3-year picture, you can tell immediately who's going to be there in 3 years' time, because the smile, the grin comes on their face. You can see them visualizing it, getting really excited. And you can see the ones that even though their eyes are closed, they're rolling their eyes and kind of going, yeah, whatever. They're not going to be here in 3 years' time. You just know that from the way you describe it. So I love that as a tool.
I really love that. I'm going to make sure I tell my teams that, when you're rolling that VTO out, get the team to close their eyes, have them visualize it there too. That's great.
I did it with a team over in New Zealand. They had about 120 staff all around New Zealand. So some were on Zoom, some were in person. As I was very privileged to be there as they launched it. The CEO, the visionary, kind of gave that speech, and I say it was really obvious. Though there was a lot of them where you could just see this massive grin appearing on their face, and you kind of go, yeah, they're seeing it. They bought into it. They'll be there. Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so the VTO. So, but what's the biggest pitfall with the VTO? Because the VTO is a very powerful tool, but I think there's several pitfalls. But what do you think are some of the pitfalls around, particularly when people are self-implementing?
I mean, listen, I think one of the issues with self-implementing is it's just not understanding fully what each section is. And let's kind of walk through a couple. That core values. I mean, I've taken a couple of self-implementing companies, and they've done the core values based upon what's the leadership team level. And I'm going to tell you also this is at least from what I've noticed, is that their core values only speak to leadership team level in terms of this doesn't speak to the guy who's pushing the broom on the shop level. Is he supposed to be a strategic thinker? Is that his job? And I think that's one major issue when they build it just for the leadership team. I think another one, it's the thing I was talking about with the core focus, is that they don't really take the time to that's soul work right there, right? Like you really got to get to the why of why you do what you do. And so many organizations default to a growth idea with that, or, number of clients. I don't know. It doesn't speak to me. And I don't think it speaks to them because you don't really see them light up with it. And I know the difference that it really made with us. And then the other spot that I do find it is in the marketing strategy. We talk about those three uniques, and I'll see a self-implementer be like, we've been in business for 30 years. I'm like, okay, why have you been in business for 30 years? Because that's not a unique thing about you, but the reason why you've been around for 30 years, there's something unique there. Maybe we want to dig even deeper. It's really like, what is the problem that you're solving for your clients? Let's find the problems that you solve, the three major problems that you solve, and let's get those in there. But I find those tend to be a bit fluffy as well.
That's a fair point.
How about you?
Well, I think that the biggest thing I see is, yes, not understanding what the purpose of each of those things are, so the kind of the context, and be able to dig deep enough to get to the real, what's really driving, if you like, but also not involving the team in it. So most visionaries will read the traction book and they'll go, great, I'll go and answer those 8 questions, and they'll kind of write them all down. And, you have to sometimes convince them we're going to do the core values again. And it's not there's anything wrong with your core values, but if we do it with the team, we might end up in exactly the same place that we started. But at least they've had some input into it, and they've understood why they exist or what it is about them. So, and sometimes it's a little tweak. I've seen it where they've had these core values forever, and then, no, these are definitely our core values. But then when you do it with the team and the whole team getting involved, whole leadership team getting involved, sometimes a tiny little word change can actually make a significant difference to the way that value is actually then, the core value speech is written and the way it's actually perceived. Same with things like the core focus. It can just be having the input. You might have still got the same essence, but there's something about it that now the team understands how we got there, what it means for them, and they feel like they've had some input into it. So that's the thing I see, is that when you work with an implementer, they're going to make sure the whole team has input into it, and therefore they've got that buy-in.
Do you always find it funny that as you're working with teams who have implemented, they're shocked at how much time it actually takes to go through each one of those tools? Because it's so different when you're sitting alone with your traction book and a VTO and you're just jotting it out as the visionary, versus getting everybody actually on the same page. And I've had this said multiple times, I didn't think that was going to take 7 hours today. I thought for sure we were going to be out of here by noon because I already had it done.
Yep, no, I see that, and especially with the accountability chart, because some of them do not have accountability charts, some of them do. But again, they haven't actually had the whole team involved. And I've had some great accountability chart sessions where we've revisited what they put together. And because we've done it with the team, there's been a change in positions, because all of a sudden somebody goes, well, actually, I wouldn't mind putting my hand up for that role. I think I'd be really good at it. Whereas when it's just been put onto a piece of paper and said, this is what you're doing, nobody has any chance to actually go, well, hold on a second, I'd like to give that a try.
100%. When we rolled out the accountability chart the first time to my insurance team, and it's specifically on the service side of things, and I think there was like 4 people in service at that point in time. And I had just written out, well, these are the roles, you're in that one, you're in that one, you're in that one, you're in that one. And then as I was stepping away, my wife had stepped into my position, and she was redoing, so they were in a quarterly, like with just a department quarterly. And she pulled up the accountability chart, and she did something really cool, because they all kind of have this same role. They're all customer service, but there may be a few nuances of like, this person has to make sure that, non-pays are taken care of, people who miss payment. This person's really kind of working on some compliance stuff. But at the end of the day, they have to take incoming phone calls and deal with stuff. So she said, hey, listen, let's write all your stuff up on the board. So it's funny, she did what Walt Brown does in what he talks about. She wrote all their roles up on the board and then kind of organized them all and then put them into the seats. And then they're like, what seat would you like? And they organized it, and boom, and everyone was so happy because they got input. And that's what I'm saying. Like, then EOS is working for them, we're not doing it to them.
No, I completely agree. And I've had some amazing sessions where, in the leadership team, the sales person, the sales accountability person, actually sort of saw the operations thing and went, I actually really want to do that. And when we went through the process of, do you GWC it, they absolutely did. And they swapped. I mean, this is a company that's been going for 30 years, and they'd never had those conversations. And so sometimes these little nuggets kind of come out. It's like, oh my gosh, would never have thought of that. But turns out they were an awesome operations person.
Yeah, it's such an incredible system, and I'm so happy that I still get to do it. I'm still sitting every week in my weekly leadership L10 meeting, right? There's so much that happens in between those 90 days, right? And I get to see that from my client's perspective in terms of, I meet with them. I got a session tomorrow with a team that, I had my check-in midway through, and I've had conversations because they're friends of ours. I had conversations with them, throughout the quarter, but so different than being in it every single week and, having to IDS every single week and do it properly and keep it on track. Like, I have so much empathy for these teams because I know that, the saying that, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's so true. And I can't be frustrated with my team because, they still have a business to run in the day-to-day. And this stuff is not easy to get done and stay on track doing all the time. But the ones that do, man, they see great success.
And they see it quite quickly, I think. This is the thing that I've sort of realized is those who really commit to the process and who really give it their all, it can actually make a significant difference in as little as 3 months, I reckon, if you're really, putting the effort in.
Yeah.
Not complete, it takes a while to get it fully embedded, but nevertheless, you can actually start to see significant changes in that first 90 days.
Yeah, absolutely you can. And honestly, and they're bragging about it. Like, they're coming to you and telling you, wow, this is making such a huge difference. We're doing our weekly L10 meetings. It's just a matter of consistency. You have to get practice at it every single week.
I agree. And I'm very grateful, as we shared before the podcast, I'm still running businesses as well as being an EOS implementer. And I'm the same. I'm in a level 10 meeting once a week and once a fortnight for the other business. It just keeps your finger on the pulse in terms of the tools. And you do realize it is easy to say. It's not also easy to do.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think it even makes you, and it makes you so much better in your sessions too, right? Because now as you're having to teach these tools, to have the fact that you have some personal stories of, being in the trenches, working with them versus hearing it secondhand from one of your clients, it adds so much more rich context to it, and it allows you to explain it in a bit of a different way.
Okay, so I'd love to hear one of your client success stories because you've been doing this for a while now. So,
Yeah.
can you give me an example without giving away the sort of the client or any sort of secret details, but a client that came into you with one of those, we were talking about the 5 frustrations, but came in with one or all 5 of them and how it's gone with them?
I had a really cool one, and it happened in a focus day, which is hard. Because, I mean, I know that there's a lot of ahas in that focus day, but it had some information prior, and he was a bit frustrated with one of the people on his leadership team. And as we were working through everything in the morning, I was going, oh, everything's pretty smooth. I kind of thought the hiccup was going to be right around the accountability chart. Everything went by smooth. And we're getting to rock setting. And I'm writing the rocks up on the board as we're going around, and everyone's saying stuff, potential rocks. And I can't remember the specifics of what was said, but something was said by the one leadership team member, and the visionary had said something. And I looked at the things that were written. I went, well, that seems strange. And they were basically calling each other out in arrive, like, you need to do this and you need to do that. I said, that seems strange. I said, can we kind of delve into that a little bit? And sure enough, kind of a fight ensues. And there had been a lot of stuff, a lot of undercurrents of things that, misunderstandings that have been happening over a number of years. And the one person, the leadership team said, you know what, I quit. And the visionary said, you say this every week. Well, this goes back and forth for a number of times. And finally I walked up to the board and I thought, we need to make a change here. It was very evident. I mean, and I'm going to be really honest with you, it was probably 2 hours of trying to peel back this onion. And I also had some information prior to walking into the session from the visionary. But at the end of the day, I had written up on the board, replacement for one of the leadership teams, this leadership team's name. And I said, is this the rock for this quarter? Or is this one of the potential rocks? And the leader looked at me and said, yeah, I'm done. And I said, okay, well, how do we want to proceed? Are we going to reschedule the day? Are you leaving and are we going to continue on? And they ultimately said, we'd like to continue. He leaves. We get to the end of the session.
Oh, so he actually left the session? Cool.
And we finished everything off. So obviously one of the rocks was, really replacing him. And we get to the end of the session. Everyone marks it down as a 10. They said, we have been trying to get rid of him or to have him like quit or leave or get into a better mood for 4 years. And we just got it done in a morning. So that's focus day. Fast forward to, I think I had their quarterly not that long ago. And they just said, things are amazing. That person's gone and they really were a poor core values fit. And everyone's happier in the office. Everyone's happier in the organization. We have a great potential hire for a replacement for them, but everyone really has congealed together to fill that vacuum that happened inside of the organization. I just thought, how cool is that?
And the cool thing is that the person who left would be happier too, because I think this is what a lot of visionaries particularly, we're not so good at making these tough calls, right? Because he's been with us for 4 years and we love him and rah, rah, rah. But the reality is if you're unhappy with him or her, they're probably also desperately unhappy. And so letting them go works both ways. They get to go be happy somewhere else and the rotten apple effect is removed because that's what happens, right? That one person can actually affect the entire organization.
And he has moved on. And actually this company, it's funny, this company, he works for another company that they actually do work with. So they still have a connection there. But no, you're right. Because I truly believe that once those words kind of come out of your mouth that I quit, you have mentally somehow checked out. You're not happy. So this was a win-win for everybody inside of the organization. And what a nicer way to do it than, the inevitable, firing that may have had to have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the things about EOS, right? We always say it's like taking a massive spotlight and shining it into every corner of the business. It highlights things very quickly. It's just how you're going to deal with it, but it gives you the tools to take the emotion out of it. I think that's the most important part for me is that EOS gives you the tools to take the emotion out of it. So you're making decisions based on what is for the greater good of the business rather than getting personal. And people start to realize that they are the wrong fit and you haven't got to push them out. They're going to make their own decision and decide it's not for them.
Yeah, actually, you hit it on the head there. I had another company that it was two partners inside the organization, and they just couldn't come to agreement on where this company was going. They ended up splitting, and the one owner called me the one day and he said, "Hey, I just want to say thank you for EOS. My partner and I were able to split amicably, and normally in my head, what I would have to do is make up this story about how, they ruined everything and get angry at them." And he said, "I just keep repeating in my head, hey, we just weren't aligned." And he's like, "It's just been so calming for me to not have all that negative hate towards another individual, but instead to just be like, you know what, it just didn't work. We just weren't aligned."
As I say, it gives you the tools to set the emotion up. Particularly, I do a lot of work with family businesses, and I think it's really, really key there because you can get so many emotions and so many interconnections in family stuff. You just, use things like the people analyzer, and suddenly it's not about that person per se, but it's just, are you aligned? And if not, that's okay. It's actually okay. I'm sure we could talk for hours because obviously we're both very, very passionate, and of course we're both entrepreneurs, so we could we could tell all kinds of stories. But I love the people who are listening in to be able to walk away with some things they can actually do, because it's all very well sitting here going, "Oh, that was lovely, but what can I actually do?" So 3 top tips or tools, what would they be from you, Ian?
Yeah. Number 1 tip, and I'm sure every one of your guests has this, but do your level 10s. Like, they are so, so important. Just do them every week, same day, same time, same agenda, just get it in. That consistency helps so much inside of your business, and it allows for just so much better communication path. The other one is getting really fall in love with your VTO. If you don't love your VTO, like, find a new VTO. Like, do not just plug information in. I can't stress that enough. There's so much that can be done if everyone is clearly aligned around a vision, and it's a super compelling vision. You can have people that are not nearly as talented, but if they align with it and they buy into it, I will take that team every single time.
And they'll walk over hot coals to help you achieve it, right? They're going to do whatever it takes. Yeah.
And then one of my favorite things is LMA.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the reason why for LMA.
First of all, you'll need to explain for people who might not know what LMA is. What is LMA in your words, Ian?
So leadership plus management equals accountability. So it's just 5 leadership practices, 5 management practices, and that's what's going to create accountability. You can't make someone accountable, but if you do these 5 things, 5 leadership, 5 management practices, that's going to lead to better accountability inside the organization. But here's why it's my favorite tool. I just absolutely love, because so often, you sit at the leadership team level, or you sit at the department level, and you're frustrated with Jim, right? Jim is just, he's not performing, not doing this, not doing that. I love LMA as that self-reflection. Is that, have I done these 5 leadership practices? Have I done these 5 management practices really well? Like, really hold the mirror up to yourself and go, have I done it? Because if I haven't, nothing's wrong with Jim. It's me. I'm the issue. And so often, maybe just so often in life, I'm the issue. You really need to self-reflect, and I think it's just such a great tool for self-reflection.
I actually, whenever I do it with my clients, I actually go through it myself, and I answer the questions honestly from my own businesses. And let's face it, despite all of the training, all the experience I have, all of the teaching this day in, day out, there are times when you just realize I'm not doing what I need to be doing to be a great leader or a great manager. Not giving them the time, the resources, the energy that they actually need. I've failed them. And I think that's, you're right, it's a great self-reflection to make sure that is it really Jim or is it actually me?
Yeah, especially there's that, like, am I keeping my expectations clear, the yours and mine? Like, what are your expectations of me? Like, I say that to my teams all the time. Like, have you asked your team what they're expecting of you? Because maybe they think you should be doing something for them that you didn't even know. And therefore there's friction there because of that, because we're not on the same page with what each other's expectations are.
I was having this conversation with a team yesterday, actually. I was doing a quarterly with one of my teams, and we were talking about, they haven't really been clear around expectations both ways. And people actually like having boundaries. I always say it's like the reason we love sports so much is because we know the rules of the game. We know how to win. We've got a scoreboard that tells us how we're going. Business is the same. If you haven't got that stuff, how do we know what is expected? And so, making sure you've got the rules of the game sort of spelled out and people know what to expect makes such a huge difference.
That's such a great analogy. I'm going to steal that one from you too.
Oh, please. Yeah, I love it. Because I always say to people, like, even if you don't enjoy necessarily playing sport, most people enjoy watching sport. Imagine trying to watch a game of, I'll use rugby because I'm a Kiwi and but actually there's an AFL going on at the moment. But, if rugby had no rules or we didn't know what the rules were, you'd literally just have a whole bunch of men dancing around on a field looking like a whole bunch of ballerinas chasing a ball or something. And it wouldn't be fun to watch because, how do we win?
Everyone would be perpetually frustrated, which again is what happens inside of business. Everyone's perpetually frustrated. So anyway, it's probably not a normal one to hear LMA, but I absolutely love it. I think it's such a great self-reflection.
It's a good reminder, absolutely. So that is, leadership plus management equals accountability. And the key point from that, and you said it really well there, is that you cannot force accountability. People have to actually take accountability. So you cannot, so people sort of say, how do I hold my team accountable? You don't. You actually become a really great leader and manager so that you can enable them to take accountability.
Yeah, and I also just think it's so cool that you don't have to be like a certain way. You read these leadership and management books, and like you have to be hard, or you have to be soft, or you have to be overbearing, or you have to have this big personality. You don't need any of them, because if you just go through the checklist, that's it. You just have to care enough about your people that you want them to do well and to actually want to get better at those things. I just think it's so simple.
It's true. And it brings me to one of my favorite tools, is actually the quarterly conversations. We did a deep dive into this a little while ago, and I think I hadn't realized how powerful they can be when done properly, because that also helps with the communication. It helps with those. It does help with understanding, what the expectations are, but it also highlights some things you sometimes don't know about your team as well. So because we often get caught up in the day-to-day stuff without having those conversations about what they love to do and where they'd like to be, doing the delegate and elevate tool, that sort of stuff, you can learn a huge amount from having those quarterly conversations, and that helps you to create the opening, which is one of the leadership abilities, is creating the opening so they can actually step up into their God-given talent, unique ability, do more of what they love.
I think there's also just, it's that they know that they have that opportunity to sit with you too. Like it's not like, well, I wonder if I'm ever going to sit down with Debra sometime. They know when it's coming. They know that it's going to happen every single quarter. It's a guaranteed time to get one-on-one with you. Like, where do you get that?
I think sometimes you get it in corporates, but it's more about performance management. It's not about having a conversation. Yeah.
It's not about, like, it has nothing to do with compensation or performance review. I just think it's just a beautiful thing, and so much can come out of it. I'm going to do one more additional on things that I'm going to suggest to people not do. Because again, writing the book one day on what not to do with EOS, don't add in another system. So, and the reason why I said this, that quarterly conversations, like that one-on-one meeting, we had added in another system, because again, a visionary, right? I love EOS and I'm going to add another system in, but I had taken a leadership training, and we ended up getting all of our leaders inside the organization trained with this other organization, which was in a lot of conflict with how EOS does leadership. But what ended up happening was we ended up having an L10 meeting for our sales department. There was a separate weekly meeting for sales training. And then there was a separate meeting one-on-one with every single person inside the organization for their weekly one-on-one, and then a checkout meeting at the end of every week. So 4 meetings every single week for every single member of the team. We were meetings for meetings for meetings. 2 things were happening. Nothing was getting done because we were just in meeting. But the second issue was that all of the issues were discovered in the individual meeting. And what happened was that oftentimes it would be conflict between team members or things they just weren't willing to address. And that forced it on the leader at that point in time to try to deal with, oh, I just got this information that you don't want me, this other team member to have. It actually forced less team health versus when we got rid of that and forced everybody to flush those issues into the L10, it made them be more healthy to bring the stuff up and to address each other more one-on-one. So that's my other tidbit. Don't mix the systems.
That's a good, very, very good tidbit, actually. Fantastic. Hey, look, Ian, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I'm really curious. Your ideal client, what does your ideal client look like for you as an EOS implementer?
Yeah, my absolute ideal client. It's less to do with the size. So I want to preface. I was in our target market somewhere between 10 to 250 employees. I had 4 when I started with EOS, or at least when I started self-implementing. I think 6 when I had an implementer. I want somebody who has huge ambition and they want to win. Like they want to win way more than I want them to win, which is a really hard thing because I really want you to win. But I'm from Canada, so I'm going to say it this way. They want to win the Stanley Cup. They want to go to the Stanley Cup and they want to do the work that it's going to take to get there. And they're not afraid to make the change, because too often they're like, yeah, but I don't know if we want to. No, you need to make the change in order to get where you want to get to going. And if you don't really want to be that kind of company at the 10-year mark, then don't bother doing any of this. And don't bother being with me, because at the end of the day, it's a waste of your money. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. I want to work with people who want to win and go to the Stanley Cup.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, and I think you're right. It isn't about size. It is about that sort of ambition. I always say I work with 2 types of clients. It's either those that are growing so fast that the wheels are falling off, but they've got that strong vision of where they want to be, or they've been going for quite some time, but they've somehow got stuck, but they still know they want to break through that. And that both of those are about growth, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the size. It's what they want.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to put your contact details in the notes here. So if you want to get in contact with Ian or even ask any more questions about any of the tools that we've talked about, you'll be able to just follow the link in those podcast notes. Ian, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Really good to get to know you, but also good to share stories, tips, tools. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Hey, thank you, Ian. Appreciate it.
Thank you.